Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Improv Network podcast. This is a series of conversations aimed at building stronger connections throughout the improv community. I'm James Quesada.
And I'm Bob Wick.
And we are your education team for the Improv Network. Please go to the improvnetwork.org. Check out all the resources that are there. There's blogs and interviews and an Improv FAQ tab where you can find these conversations archived, as well as mini lectures from yours truly on improv topics as well. If you're watching right now, you're watching either on the Facebook page or group for the Improv Network, or you're watching on the Improv FAQ YouTube channel. Those are both great places to catch the live stream or peruse through all the videos we've streamed in the past. And you can also find us as a podcast, an audio-only podcast, anywhere you listen to podcasts. So be sure to subscribe.
Yeah. Do all the good stuff. Like, comment.
You know how it is. You're watching the live stream and you're like, oh, you get so absorbed in it. And then you're like, oh, shoot, I just started thinking about these improv things and I missed it. And it's like, well, right. What are you going to do? You're going to go to the podcast and re-listen. Listen to every episode twice. That's how we recommend taking this in.
Sometimes I listen to take my own advice, so it works.
Fair. Yeah. I'm like, man, I've got some good things to say. Let me hear some of that back.
True story, Natalie's been listening to the old podcast, and every once in a while she's like, oh, this is something you said. Like, I have no recollection, but I agree with myself.
It's true. I don't want to get too far on a tangent with this, and actually it's going to be relevant to our topic with our guest, but there definitely, like, in the chasm of the pandemic, there's been all sorts of things that I've like at a time, by the way, not doing improv, rattling off all this like theory and philosophy and stuff, and like my opinions have like changed and developed, and I've like, I don't know, we've gone in the weeds on things that I'm like, I feel like I'm in a whole new era of what I think about improv. I don't remember what I used to think.
Oh, you're like that friend of Isaac's. I just want to be a whole new James.
Yeah. I'm ready to be a whole new me. So let's start with a fresh James and a fresh Bob with a fresh guest. We have a good friend of ours, originally made the rounds in the Chicago improv scene before landing in Detroit, where we have had the pleasure of knowing and playing shows with him. He's a teacher, a coach. He's a founding member of the AWOL improv company out in the Detroit area. Please welcome our good friend, Tom Novik.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody.
Welcome, Tom.
Hey, buddy.
How you doing?
Good to see you,
man. How
sir.
are you? Good.
Good. Cool.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to talk about the with you, and also, like I was saying, that the nuggets of wisdom that sometimes get lost into the ether or that influence you in ways that, we don't always stop and appreciate. We're talking on this episode about what we call aha moments, epiphanies in improv. I'm sure that term exists for anything else. But just aha moments where something really clicks with you. And we're also mixing in, some go-to teaching things, things that you learned or realized along the way in your improv career that, like, whenever you get the chance, you pass on to people who are coming up in the next round. I don't know, Tom, what's top of your list for that kind of stuff?
I sort of like, when I sat down to like think about this, I sort of thought about where I started. We went to a free improv show at IO at midnight one night, and I had never seen improv. other than Whose Line Is It Anyway, but didn't know that like you could see this live. There was clubs, like all this. So we went, and I was like, I got to do that. I have to do that. So I signed up for the next term at IO, and my very first class, my teacher was unavailable to join. And so Sharna hopped in and substituted our class.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, I'm just going to throw myself into this. I'm going to go into it. I'm going to hop in. And we just rolled into long form, hopped up on stage. I was in a scene with another guy from my class, and the suggestion was like zoo. And so I had knelt down and I said to him, I was like, did you just hit my kid? And he looked me dead in the eye and just went like this. and I was like, excuse me. I was like, I'm talking to you. I was like, did you just hit my kid? And he just looked me dead in the eye and was just like, and so I looked over at Sharna and I said, I don't know what to do. I was like, he's like being a lizard, and I don't know, I don't know how to do this. And so I was so embarrassed. I got on the train after that class, and I called my folks and I was like, I can't do this. Like this is not for me. But they talked me into powering through and just going for it. And so returned after that, and obviously learned what the hell was going on. But after you've been at this for a minute, I think it's important to just revisit stuff. Like, everybody starts somewhere. You're going to look stupid in a lot of this. Like, I still look stupid to this day. And in a lot of opportunities. So it's one of those things where you sort of have to revisit those basics of like, you have to like, don't be afraid to fly. Don't be afraid to like throw yourself out there and do those sort of things.
Or not know what's going on.
Yeah. So like we talked about before, I'm teaching Intro 1 now, and it's sort of like all that's like rushing back to me, like all those moments from that first class, and everyone's like, this is weird, or like, I don't know about this. And it's like, okay, well, hang on. Like, it's not going to be perfect right out of the gate. So that's just always a nugget that I've taken away, that it's never going to be perfect. We can always overthink it. We can always pick everything apart, but all you got to do is try and just throw yourself into it.
Yeah. That's a really good point. I think the faster you become comfortable with knowing that that you can look dumb, the easier it becomes.
Mm-hmm.
Because those moments aren't going to go away, and it's learning how to celebrate them. I guess it's the trick. Because I love it. I love it when I make a big floppy, sloppy. I don't know what like this moment right now is an example. Mistake, and I just love it.
Sloppy.
Big floppy. When I make a big floppy sloppy, I celebrate, and it gets everybody feels better.
Yeah, I think in that story it also reminds me, or just the idea that I said to be comfortable not knowing what's going on, or you're looking to Sharna being like, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do, and in one way there are things that you can do or that you can focus on, but in the broadest sense, there's nothing that you're supposed to be doing, right? Like, I think that is, I sort of similar to that, and I think I've told this story on the show before, but like, Ryan Parmenter, who is one of the funniest people I know, I was playing some shows with him when I was early on, and I was like so geeked to be doing it because I just thought he was so funny, and so I was always really jazzed to get in a scene with him. And he made an edit one time out of a scene, and whatever the context was, he took someone to a menu and was pointing at something, and it wasn't clear to me like what he was doing. It was a tag out, and then it was my character. He took me to, and was just like, oh yeah, you want something off the menu or whatever, and I was like lost. I didn't know what to do as that character, what he wanted from me. And after the show, I was like, hey, I just out of curiosity, like, what did you have in mind when you did that edit? And he was like, oh, I thought that there just needed to be an edit, and I figured I would take us somewhere else. And I was like,
That's sounds like Ryan. Like it's what it is.
And that was an epiphany for me of like, oh, even like really smart players don't always have like some master plan behind what they're doing, and you can just operate on the assumption that like even if they have an intention, fine, but you don't have to pick up on it, and they might not have one, like any,
Yeah,
right.
and that's okay too.
Yeah. I think my first like big like aha moment, it was the same note over and over again by Jenny Hagel. As like someone who was starting long form, I always had the tendency to try to put up roadblocks or just little pushback, or not exactly a denial, but it'd always be like introducing too much reality into the scene too fast, or just pushing back when it didn't necessarily have to happen. And
Sure.
she would always go oh god, what would you say, or, and then I just or yes and yes, yes, we can take the hoverboards to work, and we don't have to worry about gassing them up or whatever thing any obstacle I was sticking in there, or she just kept on doing it to me. I just kept on doing it, and like, and then there was a conversation I just had with her, like we were on break, and like, but what about conflict? And she's like, it'll happen. You don't have to, you forcing it, putting all the roadblocks at the beginning of the scene just slows down like where your start. You're not even at full stride yet. You have to get there, and you'll discover it. Like you're right.
And I think even sometimes with some of our initiations, it's very easy to roll into something, and you don't realize you're talking for a whole minute. Like there have been sets at Pointless, what Nevere and I, where I'm like, we grew up together, and we were supposed to do this, and we were supposed to live on the same street, and blah blah blah, and we worked together, and blah blah blah. And so I was just like going and going, and then she just looked at me and she said, well, it looks like you've got everything figured out. And so that was like the scene. So it was just cut after that, because it was like I was just like going off the rails. And so it was like, it was one of those like perfect moments. Like, yeah, it's like it's a no-no, but it was like, shut down at an appropriate time. But yeah.
That's great. That's because there's like two things in there that I think are really big takeaways. Is one, it's the idea of like bring a brick, not a cathedral, right? Mm-hmm. Bring one piece, not the whole thing. But then also, you front loaded a scene like that, and Nevere, who you play with regularly and have great chemistry with, then responded to it in a way that was just like honest and winked at the front loading of the scene.
Oh yeah,
and that's playful and made it work, right? It's It's not. It was probably a big laugh moment. I'm guessing that she didn't go, well, it looks like you have everything figured out, and the audience was like, boo.
No, they loved it. They loved it. Even though they weren't picking apart the improv scene, they weren't analyzing it. They were just like, oh wow, that was that was great. And but I think another thing that I was thinking about was it's very easy to overthink a lot of opportunities and a lot of things that you do. And I just, I constantly have to tell myself, like, you're ready. You're ready now. Like every time I've been asked to do anything, my first response is, are you sure? Like when I got the call and it was like, hey, you want to start teaching? I don't know. Are you sure? Do you think I'm ready? Like, or like, when you put together 6-chamber roulette and asked us to be a part of that show, and I was like, are we ready to do a mono scene in like front of people? It's like, yeah, why not? And so it's like all these other people believe in you. And it's like all you have to do is like believe in yourself for 2 minutes. So it's like I feel like a lot of opportunities that I've been given, I'm like, I don't know, are you sure?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I'm sure. I'm calling you. I'm like, can't someone else do it? And they're like, no, we want you to do it. And I was like, I guess.
Oh, here we go.
But it always works out.
Yeah, I feel like that's akin to like something PJ had to teach me. Like when I first started doing showdowns, just take the compliment and thank people who compliment you, because that's all they're trying to do something nice for you, rather than Hey, man, great show, Bob. Well, actually, in scene 3, I thought it was establishing this, but so-and-so didn't realize this. And honestly, I probably should have cut on. And here's what other mistakes I made. Audience member who enjoyed the show, and now I'm just shitting on the thing they enjoyed.
I know. I've had that exact conversation with him, and that was the same feedback that I got, and it was very helpful because like sometimes you get off stage and like I felt obligated to like hang out with these people, and I'm like, so where are you from? You know, what do you? And I'm like, get out of here! Now you're hanging out.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah. I feel like he's had that conversation with almost every cast member.
Definitely. Yeah, I've had that conversation too. Yeah, but those kind of go hand in hand, right? Is like it's I don't know what it is. It's definitely confidence or like security. But it's also like kind of reducing the big deal of it, right? Is that like don't put so much pressure on like a compliment or an opportunity, you know, just sort of like breathe and do it or say thanks or like whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like it's that
for what they are. Accept both of them for what they are. Like someone believes in you. You should love that. Why crap on that moment?
Yeah, or it's like I just am imagining like if you get a compliment and you're like oh my god, did you think so? Like thanks so much. Like that's also not good. Or if somebody gives you an opportunity and you're like yes, I am ready and I'm gonna do it, and like this is so amazing. Thank you so much. It's like you want to find that sweet spot where it's like you can appreciate it, but without blowing it out of proportion.
Yeah. No, of course. I remember when I started hanging around the Ant, Jamin, I was talking to Jamin, and he mentioned to me, he's like, you know, you can always impress your family and friends. Like, you know, you've had family and friends at shows and like, oh my God, you were so great. Or, oh, like, you know, I loved you up there. But it's so much more impressive to like impress a stranger, like to get a stranger to like someone you've never met. You didn't talk to them before the show and they come up to you and they're like, hey, you know, I really enjoyed that. And that was those moments where I was just like, thank you so much. I'm going to walk away now. I'm shutting this down right now. I really appreciate that, but I have to go now.
That's a great response. I really appreciate that, and I have to go now.
This is a beautiful moment. I would like to walk away before I ruin it. Thank you.
I will completely ruin this perfect thing, and this is going to fuel me on my way home.
You didn't realize when we started talking how socially awkward I am, and I'm not gonna show that to you. So have a good day.
Yeah. This is a good add-on to our topic, our thread here. We have a viewer that asks, hey, everybody, what's your take on imposter syndrome in improv? Have you ever had an aha moment regarding this topic? I hear a lot of folks talking about this phenomenon. And so, the idea of imposter syndrome is just like feeling like you're out of place or don't belong, and constantly just being like, feeling that you're going to get found out for not being ready or qualified or deserving of being where you are, right?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I don't know, Tom. Any immediate thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think that everybody deals with this in some form or some capacity, you know, throughout their career. You know, whether it's improv, whether it's work, whether, you know, a lot of things. I was just talking about this over the weekend with someone, and you know, we were sort of diving into a couple different things. One of which being with imposter syndrome, you have to. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. You
bail out.
Oh hell! I gotta.
Oh man,
I'll
make a sloppy.
No, I think that it's important that with imposter syndrome, we spend a lot of time overthinking our choices on stage, overthinking our interactions with people. We overthink so many things, and like improv is also for you. Like you have to take care of yourself in this. So a lot of it's like, yes, you know, you're putting on a show for an audience, but yes, like you should be enjoying yourself and you should be having fun. So I think my aha moment was after so many sets and so much time on stage, I reached a point where, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to have fun out there. And I'm going to do this one for me, like not being like, selfish or like pushing agendas, but I think it's more of a, I'm just hanging out with my friends and people just happen to be here hanging out and paying to see it. So it's one of those things like you sort of need to just refocus on what this means to you. So I completely agree that everyone is exposed to it in some capacity, but after you've been doing it a while, you're almost to a point where it's like, yeah, so what?
You do kind of like embrace, or like you just accept the fact, there's always some degree of it happening, but I guess you just kind of get like used to it or setting it aside. And just for me, I feel like knowing, I've heard enough people talk about it that like knowing that just about everybody is going through it is like, oh, cool. Well, then it's all normal. I don't have to worry about it, And I think that I'm losing my train of thought. Literally, I was.
I don't know. We're all playing politicians today. Here's the thing about syndromes, all right?
Yeah. Well, no, but I think the longer the more. Let me say this: the more stage time you have, the more evidence you have that you do belong. It's something I tell my students all the time. Like, taking classes is a great way to learn. Watching this or reading is a great way to learn, but getting on stage is just as important. You're learning art, right? Mm-hmm. And the more evidence you have that you belong on that stage, the more confident you become. And then when you have those judgment moments, like, oh, I just did like some brilliant improvisers might say, a floppy sloppy happens. You can say, yeah. Well, but what about the other 58 minutes where I was, doing my job or doing art or, crushing whatever, that's evidence that I do belong here, and that should be respected and taken into account.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's a very, I think, remembering what my train of thought is that it's like a personal thing, right? Like, I think that's what's really particularly tough about improv, or I guess a lot of like art forms, is the way to do it best brings a lot of just like you and your identity to it, right? So I imagine that for a lot of people, a big factor is comparison and peer relativity, right? Of like, oh, well, like I'm playing with these people and they do that, and it's and just like, well, they're so good at this, but I don't do that. Like I can't do that. But it's like, well, you don't have to do what other people do the way that they do it. In fact, you shouldn't try to do that. Mm-hmm. You should just really just chip away, get out of your own way, and bring as much of yourself to it, which can be really like vulnerable and kind of scary. And that's really like the best way to, I don't know, remove that.
Just to piggyback off what, I'm sorry. Just to piggyback on what you said, like, I think that's also akin to, I'm not saying that that's what you were doing, James, but I've seen, and I've done it myself, like the really negative peer comparison, like, oh, I started classes with this guy and he got this opportunity before I did, and maybe I don't belong here. I'm like, no, that's not how opportunities work. They come and they go, and you might get the next one. So you shouldn't keep score. That's not healthy. That's not how art works. If someone doesn't give you the opportunity the first time, make your own opportunities rather than have that negative judge, make you feel like as if.
And that's something that I think is, a big thing in Detroit, is that if this opportunity doesn't exist, or, you feel like you're not getting out of this what you want, like, you can make your own thing. You can write your own show. You can put up your own deal. It's one of those things where it's like, you don't, I'm not saying you don't need these opportunities, but like sometimes you have the opportunity and you have the resources to make your own thing. Which I think is so cool.
Yeah, I like that the comment in there of you don't need it, right? I think that's a great, definitely something. It's bad to need to like feel the need, like for to get an opportunity or to get to a destination or something. I think that can be that can quickly become toxic.
Yeah.
And again, you're more likely to get in your own way if you feel like you need something enough. So, yeah, just coming to terms with like, oh, I don't need this. I should be, and the curve of it is endless, right? Like, and whether you're gonna like do most of what you do at a theater or do things like on and off and take breaks and come back, or you're gonna start producing your own shows and writing more than you act all of a sudden, or whatever. Like if you really love it, it's going to be a lifelong arc, and so don't sweat the things that are right in front of you, because you're gonna have a long journey.
So you're gonna have a real bad time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that brings up another point, that like we all care about this in different capacities. Right. So like, you remember like when you were in high school and like you had like your thing, or like your thing that you were involved in, and like that seemed like it was everything. Mm-hmm. You had like no job, no responsibilities. Like sometimes you can get into a vacuum in this type of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think I've been very lucky to have a lot of opportunities where I just had a lot of like individual attention. One of the first groups I was on out in Chicago at Loyola, they was called BAM, and it was basically like 10 seniors and then Heather and I, and so it was such a cool opportunity because we got individualized feedback. We were playing cafes with no one in the audience, and it was just the two of us. Like our coach didn't even show up half the time, so it was just like we were just like running amok, like doing these shows, and I loved it because it was like the pressure was gone, so you could truly go up there and do whatever you wanted and be weird and be goofy and all that. So I think that a lot of early moments definitely shape who you are as a performer.
Yeah, I'm going to throw, sorry if you can hear somebody sawing outside of my window, so I apologize if you can hear that. But I'm going to bring up, I'm going to throw a curveball in here. And first of all, let me pit stop it to say hi, Heather.
Hey, Heather.
And she wants you to describe how big the stage was at the cafe.
How big was the stage of that cafe? It was if you put down a couple bricks and then laid a door down. Heather and I had our Titanic. We both could not fit on the door, so we just took turns going on this janky stage at this cafe.
Oh man. Okay, I'm gonna resist the urge to go down a whole bar prov rabbit hole, but yeah, that's first of all hilarious way to describe it. It's because I feel like I've been to places that are literally just a cafeteria table or makeshift stages that might literally just be like doors laid down.
Yeah.
Plywood stages and stuff. Yeah. But anyway, I want to throw out like a pretty much like a reverse aha moment, because it's something that in what you were describing, Tom, that I still don't really have a handle on this. I don't know how to turn on and off pressure, like good pressure and bad pressure. Humble brag here. I feel like I'm a pretty good auditioner for improv stuff. And what happens is, or when I play Teachers Lounge, when teachers are playing in front of a bunch of students and stuff like that, I feel like really good improv habits come out of me. I nail the basics, I demonstrate
practice what you preach,
that I know how to improvise. But then there's times when I'll be doing house team shows, and I'm I just am not giving it the same focus or doing the same things. And I don't know if I'm trying to be too squirrely and throw wrenches and curves in for fun, or if I'm just I want I want to play well, but I don't want to play contrived and by the book. Or what it is, but like there's a certain kind of pressure that I think is positive that comes along with something like an audition where it brings quality basics out of me, and I can't manufacture that feeling for the life in me when I want it or need it outside of that setting.
I think it's a similar pressure as to when you go a long time without a show. Like, obviously everyone's felt that through the pandemic and everything, but like we briefly discussed before, like with feeling like you need to be on or you need to like do this specific thing, I think that when you're like doing this 5-6 days a week, it's very easy to lose gas. But like I completely agree that certain opportunities are a different energy up there. Teachers Lounge is like, I'm just worried that I'm going to do something that I told them like specifically like, hey, like steer clear of that. Like, don't do that. Like, there were a couple of topics that I mentioned at the beginning of the term where I said like, hey, like just steer clear of these. Don't ever talk about these. And so, of course, we're on stage and like I end up like killing myself in front of everybody. And they're like, hey, you said that. And I was like, well, that. So
if
it's
you're
like,
really feeling it, it's okay. Yeah.
So it's all those moments where it's like, it's so easy to like preach that, but then like once you're in it and like the storyline's leaning that way, like, oh, this person's either going to be murdered or something, and it's like, here we go. It's like it's like you feel it, it's happening. But yeah, I completely agree. Different opportunities are different energies for sure.
But in your defense, when we're giving notes or those kind of advice, we can't also piggyback all the nuances where it might work. Don't ever kill yourself on stage unless this happens or this.
It's like, of course this came up. Of course this has come up.
Of course.
Somewhere, I think there's a quote from Mick Napier, maybe in his more recent book, or that I overheard him in some context say that like you really want to have like dreadful anxiety while improvising, write a book about improv.
That's fair.
The pressure to practice what you preach will drown you. But yeah, I don't know. Bob, any thoughts on like kind of flipping a switch to play in a? It's like I wish that it was as easy for me to be like, okay, this show's got to be family friendly. Yeah. As it was to be like, okay, this show I'm gonna do like that like back to basics, anding. But I can't flip the switch like that.
I think it's one of those things that you can discuss with your the people you're performing with. Mm-hmm. And then like I try and set like a personal goal for myself before I walk out there. And then I also check in with who I'm playing with and say things like, what do we want to work on today? Do we want to focus on character? Do we want to focus on, details? What do we want to do today? And then I, give a personal goal for myself, just checking in, just like, hey, like, don't sit in a chair for 22 minutes. Hey, like, be a little more active, interact with the room, like, move, get around there. Like, try this out. So.
I think a lot of the notes I give myself are more playful because I don't want them to be serious. Like it's something as simple as like, oh, I like how Tom does this. Can I do it too? Like when I was doing that show where the with Wick, where I would play with someone new, that'd be the thing. Like I'm following your lead. I like how you play. I want to see if I can do that style or introduce some of your elements into the way I play, just to see, what happens. It might work. It might not. I might make as we say in the improv world, a floppy sloppy, or not. It might work. So
I completely agree. And I think that, we put so much pressure on about like having like these like perfect performances that we always focus in on the one thing. Like, have you ever had like a set in your mind that's like, wow, that set was so great, except for that one 30-second scene. Let's pick it apart and talk about it at the bar until they tell us to go home. And it's like, wait. You had 21 minutes and 30 seconds of just like awesome content that the audience was on board with. You were connecting, you were ticking all the boxes, and then you had one, palate cleanser throwaway scene. Like who gives a shit? Like just, celebrate, there's so much good happening versus what you think bad is happening. Because guess what? Like all those people in that audience, they're not thinking about that 1 20-second scene. Like they don't remember half of the stuff they saw on your set.
Yeah.
They'll remember if like a chair broke or like the curtain got stuck on your arm when you were walking out.
Yeah.
Well, that was fun.
That's another.
Like, hey, remember when you fell? I'm like, yep, sure do.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was me.
I think about that all the time.
My thing is usually getting two things mixed up that have nothing to do with each other. Like, what was it last weekend? I got Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants and the Ya Sisterhood mixed up. I mean, they both have sisterhood in it. I might even be saying the title wrong right now. I might be making my own floppy sloppy as we speak. I don't know.
Those are top three. Those are top three improv moments for me when, people don't know what it is or, they're not familiar with it. But I love, like, we're running an intro one right now, like panel of experts and all that. So it's like just hearing people talk about things like that's the only thing they know about. One of my favorite moments from Diff was I was watching a team out of Toronto, and they were one of the headlining groups, and we were watching them, and they got out there and they said, where's somewhere that a lot of people gather? And because we were in Metro Detroit, someone said the Dream Cruise. And so they're like, Dream Cruise, thank you. And so they started the lights went down, the lights came back up, and they were holding each other, and they're like, look at us. We're finally taking the cruise of our dreams. And the whole audience like erupted in laughter. And after the show, they were like, why did that hit so hard? And I was like, oh, that's like a thing out here that like no one outside of this knows about.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
This is I'm spiraling because like now I'm thinking of like things that I wish I had aha moments for, because like being able to use a suggestion in that way, like because I would love to be able to to repurpose, but not in a way that's like that's genuine, right? Like what are you guys' thoughts on like, if you know what it is, should you use it as what it is, or like if it seems too obvious, like are you more likely to repurpose it?
Honestly, if it really depends on how often I've heard that suggestion too. Like that's when like if it's about to be Dream Cruise and I've been doing a lot of showdowns and everything is coming up Dream Cruise this, I might just, you know what, this one's for me. We're gonna do the cruise of our dreams. Or I'm gonna sit on Woodward and watch everybody's dreams go down the street and enjoy those. Like, ooh, here comes a nightmare. Whatever.
I think it keeps it fresh when you sort of play with that versus like taking it literally versus like, I mean, they didn't understand in that context, but like,
right.
I think it's fun to just sort of switch that up just as a performer.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I guess if it's definitely if it's something that I hear a lot, I'll look for a way to not rehash, because that's more authentic to me performing. But sometimes it'll be like Lord of the Rings, and I'm like, I don't want to do.
What do I do with you?
Yeah, I don't want to do Lord of the Rings.
Do I have to be Schmiegel again for 4 minutes?
Yeah, right.
I think same goes for object work too. Like, I always tell people in my class, like, first one to label it, that's what it is. Like I remember a scene where I think it was Launch Group. We walked out on stage and someone went like this and like picked something off a shelf and like rubbed it on their shirt, and they were looking at it, and I walked in and I said, are you finding, did you find a snow globe you like yet? And they looked back at me like, what are you doing right now? And so like we rolled through it like we were in like a like a Christmas shop, and we got backstage and they're like, Tom, the suggestion was autumn. Like I was picking an apple. And so I was like, were you now? I was like, I didn't see it. I just
it's kind of big. I don't know.
I mean,
Yeah.
I love that.
Again, that goes back to like the intention thing. I think that's really important to me. Maybe let's see if we can get out a couple, like, as you're teaching, what are some things that you almost always offer to a class, especially if it's an early on one, to be like, don't get hung up on this, or whatever the advice might be. Mine in this case would be this, going back to this idea of like, whatever someone's intention is, no matter what side you're on, if you are on the side where you're receiving someone's intention, if you get it, great. And I think until you build chemistry with each other, use it at face value. But if you don't get it, don't worry. Like, just do anything else, react to it, make your interpretation. And then on the person who has the idea, it's like, if you have an intention, great, offer it up and see what happens. But don't demand or get frustrated by the outcome if it's not what you were going for.
Yeah. No, and I think I always tell my students, I'm like, look, like, this is the place to test stuff. This is the place to try stuff. There's no audience here. Like, this is where we really just let it all hang out and just, see what happens. So, I mean, I know some of my classes probably get annoyed, but I always check in after most scenes and ask stuff like, hey, how was that for you? Or how'd you feel after that? And they're just like, why do you always ask us how we feel? And it's like, because a lot of times, like, you give yourself the feedback. A lot of times, like, they can figure out, like, I'm like, hey, how'd you feel in that scene? Well, I feel like we didn't know who each other were, and we didn't know where we were. And, I wasn't really giving anything back. And I said, cool, those were all my notes. Anything else?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. So, it's one of those things where, like, I think it's important to have, especially in a classroom setting, to have those open and honest conversations. You're not, like, attacking the other performer. You're just, we're trying to identify these hurdles so we can make it easier for next time. So it's like, if we start a scene and someone's screaming at each other, say like, hey, maybe we're both screaming about the same thing. We're already in agreement, and we can easily move forward from there. So yeah, I just tell people, try. This is the place. It's not going to be perfect here. There's no grades, and
if you show up, you're going to pass.
You're going to move on. I'm not gonna hold you back.
Yeah, it's totally subjective, right? Like, the only way to really, not the only way, but and also it's not totally subjective. There are objective goals that you can set for yourself and evaluate. But the bottom line is that, like, there's no substitute for the time and experience of doing multiple scenes over and over again. That's part of the essential element of improv, is that it's in the moment and one time only. So it's like, you just got to do a bunch, and yeah, absolutely, like, just try things, and you gain a little piece from everything, but like, yeah, it's never going to be perfect, and you're never going to solve it suddenly by doing the one scene that was like, there it is, cool, I got it.
Yeah. And that's honestly,
I got improv. I've been teaching an intro class, and a lot of it's been great because I've had to revisit, like, the basics and worked with people who haven't had a lot of stage time. So the one thing I've been bringing up almost every class is stop being so polite and be specific. Meaning, like, if you have a want, just say what you want rather than being catty about it. That's something we do in everyday life, but it doesn't move the scene forward. So if you want something, tell the person what you want. If you don't like them, tell the person you don't like them and why. Give yourself that gift of having intent. And to follow up on that, if you're the person listening to the dialogue, if that person has intent, everything they're saying, every word they're choosing is specific and has a specific purpose, but you get to choose how it affects you. So relationships important. All these things are important. And if you listen, the scene will grow out of that, because you replying to what they're saying, and then them replying to what you're introducing, rather than trying to pull something out of the air, because that's a lot harder, just manufacturing. Because I've seen a lot of scenes in the last couple of weeks where hey mom, can I borrow the car? Yeah, sure. Just get gas. Oh my God, here comes Frankenstein. Like, why? Why is
Why?
he here? I love it.
Yeah.
And then they don't know what to do with it because, like, it doesn't really, it wasn't an adjacent choice. It's a big choice. And I make sure, like, hey, you can make big choices, but now we have to kind of reset. So when you're comfortable with resetting that fast, which you'll get to, cool. But right now, you should probably let things grow a little more.
Yeah. I also always tell students, like, look, everything you have is right in front of you. Like if you're not focusing on the person in front of you in relationship or, helping paint this scene and make it work, like I refer to it as their 3D Doritos moment, where like it was like we're scrambling, we don't know who each other are, we don't know where we are, we don't know what we're doing, and it's like, hey, remember 3D Doritos? Like you have something very specific, like reference level, that you're just like throwing into there, and it's like, all right, now we're just grabbing things. Now we're just like, what about this haunted book? And it's like, okay, well, what's going on? Like, we still don't have the basic details out of the way. And so it's like, it's a lot of like, everything you have is right in front of you. Like, we don't need to keep like making more stuff because we're running out of room and on this tiny door stage. So,
yeah,
no, I like that. I think the other thing I have to keep on mentioning is don't focus so much on the item or the object. Don't make the story about the object because all you get is a list game. Hey, you see my new house? Cool. Yeah, it's got a slide that goes right to the bathroom. Cool. And yeah, it can transform to Optimus Prime. All right. Cool. And yeah, all the wardrobes go to Narnia. All right, cool.
Yeah. I think just specificity is huge. But like whatever it is, just naming it. Like I mean, I know you're making a totally different point with the 3D Doritos thing, but
which are back, by the way. I've seen them places.
What are we doing here, guys?
I finally manifested it.
You led with that, Tom.
We talked about it for so many years. Now they're always at weird gas stations, not at like regular ones, but like those ones where you've never heard the name or like. Yeah.
Do they come back or did someone hold on to them for a very long time?
They're just loose in a bowl at the counter. You buy Lucy's of them.
Yeah.
Oh, Lucy Dorito. That's my ska band.
The kinds of gas stations were like
in a pandemic, loose Doritos.
Yeah, people will be hoarding them. Yeah, but so my point about the object work is just like when you have something in front of you that needs naming, just name it. And if you come up with 3D Doritos, great. If it's an apple, fine. If it's a snow globe, fine. My go-to way of talking about this is the chess comparison, which is a game that's been played for hundreds and hundreds of years. People, the reason it's been played for that long and people still play it today is not because of how big of a kick people get out of the first couple of moves. Like, you just there's only so many moves you can make at the beginning of a chess game. It's really about what develops from in the meat of it. So just like whatever you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not like, oh man, apple or snow globe or 3D Doritos.
Right. Oh,
a lot of options. A lot of good options.
What's the funniest choice here, guys? Oh, come on, brain.
We go with haunted book. Any other teaching tips that students would rarely leave a class with you without hearing?
And this is repeated from someone else, but I had the opportunity to take Susan Messing's class, and there's just so many just good tips that just come out of her course. One of them was that she always told us listen, I have to be me all week. And if I get up there for 18 or 22 minutes, I can be whoever or whatever I want to be. And that stuck with me since, when did I start? In 2006. That stuck with me this entire time, because it was like, man, you only get so many minutes up there and you work so hard at this. Why would you want to be boring me? Like, in traffic or at a restaurant, you know what I mean? Like, you can be whatever the hell you want. So that was always a big takeaway for me.
Well, as soon as you said that, I just had a flashback of every scene I've ever done with you. I'm like, oh, it all makes sense now. Like, Tom's never Tom. Like, that's awesome.
That's why I hosted one time at Go Comedy, and PJ said, "How was that?" And I said, "Terrible." And he goes, "Cool, you'll never do it again." And so I was like, "All right, thank you." And so I don't know. I just get up there and I feel like I'm such a boring person in real life that I get up there and I'm just like, "What's up? You guys like drinks? I think we got cans of beer." And then it's just always like just flat. I just feel like everyone else is so good at hosting, and I get up there and I'm just like, "Cool, we have comedy here, and it's gonna happen soon." And I'm the thing before the comedy.
I feel like I do the opposite. Like, hey guys, welcome to Go Comedy. Tonight we're doing long form. You might not know what long form is. Okay, so in the beginning, Viola Spolin had kids, and he was the lights are going off.
I agree. It gives me such anxiety. I think it's not for everybody. Not everybody's good at it, and like I think I had found things that like work well enough, but like I just at a certain point realized how much anxiety it gives me to host, because it is work for me to stay loose, and you know what I mean. It's just I'm right with you, Tom. I would much rather take the time to like let loose and be really animated and be a character. It's too much responsibility. But it also, what you said also reminds me of this is not something that I say often enough in classes, and I should make a point to say it more, is a tip from Jamie Moyer, who says, the audience doesn't come to see you in fucking neutral.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I think there's merit to like playing slow prov and close to self and nuance and stuff. But I think that there is something to really consider about whether you're understating or leaning into nuance in a way that's taking away from both yours and the audience's enjoyment. And I've been guilty of that before, of like trying to play like too subtle that I'm not having fun, and I don't think that I'm helping the rest of the show be fun.
Well, I mean, even if you're playing subtle, you still have to project energy out, right? You have to care. You have to show, like, again, it's kind of, to me, like playing subtle is also, it's akin to like a stage whisper. Like, it's not the same as actually being subtle, it's not, and a stage whisper is not an actual whisper. It's a storytelling technique we do, or acting technique. So to help the story go along, rather than just, hey, I showed up, that should be good enough.
Yeah,
you guys.
I also think that what happens to you, like when we talk about dreams, like what happens to you during your day, that's what you dream about. I think what happens to you like during that day before a set, like dramatically affects how you perform. Because it's like, if you've had a terrible day at work, or like, you've just like been through it and you get there and everyone's like, hey, got your back. What do you want to work on? I'm like, I don't know. And so like, sometimes it's like, you've just been like defeated all day and like, you have to just turn it on. But it's also one of those things, like what sort of drives me is that like, we don't know any of these people in the audience. So like, if you can turn around someone else's day, even though you're having a rough day, I think that's a win.
Absolutely.
So if it's like, hey, it's Friday night, everyone's had a long week, like let's just have fun and enjoy it. Like can't change what happened, so just power through. So
that's something that I've been coming to terms with more and more, is just the idea that the audience's perspective, because I've just always been like super absorbed into improv and like like sometimes to a fault, and I've never really kept like a real or like not often have I kept a day job or like the regular work week hours. And so I think there's a missing perspective for me of like what it's like to be like, we got Friday night plans and we're going to see a show, because I'm used to being, taking the classes and doing the shows and working all weird hours where I forget that, what day that weekend even is. But like there is something to keep in mind when you're doing shows that people are coming to see, a paid ticket that you're getting paid for, like turn it on, like give people a good time, like be energetic,
Yeah, I think that
I was thinking about.
go ahead.
I was thinking really quick. I always think about that moment that someone in the house bought the tickets and then made the announcement, because to them that's a big deal. Like, hey, I got us tickets to a comedy show.
Yeah,
and like,
yeah,
it must have went over well because they showed up. So you got to cater to those people.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Tom?
Oh, I was gonna say, in addition to just like getting up there and like powering through it, I feel like, a lot of times, regardless if you work a regular 9-to-5 job, I think it's just so important to just like constantly just like go out and do things. Do you know what I mean? Like you get so much from like just hanging out at a coffee shop, or like, I'm looking at like the way people carry themselves, or the way people like present in a meeting, or how someone orders at McDonald's, or you know what I mean? Like, so there's just there's so much out there you can just pull from for inspiration. But a lot of times it's very easy to get consumed in all this. And it's like, you spend 5-6 days doing this and focusing on it and writing, and, it's like a lot of your disposable time is spent on this, but it's important to have, those moments where you're like, I need to go see a movie. I need to know what this is, or I need to watch this documentary, or I need to be up. I'm sort of like so glad that like we're not going to see any like sketch shows about Tiger King, or like, there's certain things that like seep into improv where I'm like, oh no, we don't want it. We don't need it. And so like pop culture phenomenons, and I'm like, oh, here we go.
Stop bringing up the wall. I don't have anything to happen with this.
Someone's going to do something with this. Here we go. Yeah. But like, you have to know what it is, but you also like, you can't escape some of these things.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, Bob. That the stage whisper comment gave me my latest aha moment, which is, well, it's just such a nice, succinct analogy for what you need to put on as a performer when you like, even if you're going to play close to self, or subtle and nuanced, and do slice of life. It's like yeah, but it's still a stage whisper. Like you're still doing it on stage. Yeah. So it has to have something that acknowledges and gives it that. And so like play like a stage whisper, even when you're playing close to self, is a great
stage whisper. Yeah, let's get some shirts. That's a good one.
Some t-shirts made. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks so much for joining for the conversation, Tom. I think it's such a great topic. Were there any other aha moments or go-to tidbits that we left behind on your list?
Oh man. I wrote down a couple.
Given to me, rattle them off.
A conversation you and I had a while back. You don't have to say yes to everything. Opportunity wise, like you're still a part of this community. You're still an active member. It's one of those things like there's so much pressure where it's like, I have to do all these things. I have to be involved in everything. And it's okay to just focus on one or two things and do that thing well. Everyone doesn't have to do everything. Another aha moment for me was 1 year we went to 9 different festivals across the U.S. and it's such a grounding moment, because you become such a person that's like just performing all the time, and like you're known in your own pocket of the community, and then you go to these cities where people have no idea who you are, and like it goes back to that discussion about pressure. I think that it adds a whole new type of pressure where it's like, these people have no idea who I am, so I can truly either like scare the shit out of them, or like, I could try new things, because guess what, like it's over in 22 minutes. So you mostly thrive on that. Does that ever? Yeah, it's sort of that's why I sort of love loved playing at Pointless so much was that it was just people were out to just have a couple beers and watch a show, and it wasn't. They didn't overthink it. They weren't trying to pick apart what you were doing. They were just there for a good time, and it, you could truly like be weird and just let it rip.
Yeah, I think that's great advice too. Is just like go play somewhere where people don't know you. Like the deeper you get into improv, and especially the more ingrained you get at a particular theater or community, like it's just good. Whether it's because you thrive on it or because you need a reality check, like it's good to just go like, okay, let's go somewhere I don't know and see what I learn from about a clean slate me in front of a new audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Anything else?
I think that was it. I'm panicking. I had a lot written down and it's all like blurred together right now. So
well, we covered a lot of ground. There was a lot of really great stuff in there.
No, I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. Thanks so much for joining. It's been a really great talk. Great to catch up with you. Is there anything you want to plug in the world right now before we let you go?
Next April, we are Maggie and I wrote a show called Listed, which opens up at the Planet Ant at the end of the end of April. So we'll be up and running with that. We were in Tech Week the week before the pandemic hit, and they pushed us out a weekend, then they pushed us 2 weeks, and then they said we don't know what's going on right now. And now I've got all these props. We're in too deep. We got it. Someone needs to see this. We had a blast working on it, and I'm excited for it to happen.
What's the short description of it?
We haven't written that yet. The whole show is written and musical cues and everything is that, but we wrote this show before I got into real estate, and we just sort of thought it'd be funny if real estate agents had to be like agents, like secret agents.
So, okay, yeah.
So it was just one of those like goofy bit ideas, and we were just like, you know what? Let's stretch this out and see what happens. So we're both very proud of it, and so looking forward to that.
Yeah, well, we'll have to include any links to that. I don't know if it's already listed on Planet Ant's calendar or when tickets go on sale. But let us know. We'll make sure it gets included in the description.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Thanks again, Tom. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks again.
Have a good one, bud.
See ya.
Yeah, and for our I've said goodbye too early. Well, because I suppose really the closing is for our audience. Thanks for joining. Thanks to Heather and Pam and our anonymous user who asked about imposter syndrome. We really appreciate you engaging and participating. It always makes the conversation that much more interesting and fun. Remember that we are a podcast that you can find anywhere you listen to podcasts, and to check out the improvnetwork.org. I should really do that spiel and then say, Tom, as our guest, thank you so much for joining. This has been a great conversation.
No, keep shutting it down in different ways.
Yeah,
we don't want it to end down. That's why we don't have a sound ending.
Let me show you the door. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Okay.
And just do the slow fade into black, and we don't even acknowledge that we're turning it off.
Yeah. All right, everybody. We'll catch you next time on the Improv Network podcast.